Shushan, the great capital city in the mighty Persian Empire. During the height of prosperity in this kingdom, a plan is laid in the heart of the city that would annihilate a race of people scattered throughout all the provinces of the empire. But the hand that decreed the death was not allowed to carry out its sentence. Another hand, a mysterious hand, had its own plan.
And King Ahasuerus' car is pulling in at the entrance to the banquet hall, where he will be hosting the annual State of the Empire dinner. We have representatives here from all over the empire tonight. I'm told that their wives are at a banquet being hosted by Queen Vashti in another part of the palace.
I was holding a party for the officials' wives, and the king was having his own party with the officials, and he was getting very drunk. And he was entertaining his friends, and then he wanted me to come for some reason, and he was very drunk. So the official came to me and said, "Vashti, the king wants you." "The king wants me? What? No way, Jose, I'm not going there." And so he got very angry for some reason, and so he went back to the king, and I guess the king was not very pleased at the news that I would not come to entertain his friends. So he asked his officials what to do with me, and so they said, "Throw Vashti out." So they threw Vashti out.
The call was sent out for fathers to bring their daughters to the palace for Persia's ultimate beauty contest. The winner would be named queen.
I'm thankful that my father, I can sit at the king's side if he just accepts me. There's just so many people that are gonna enter this contest. I just am so excited. I just hope I can win.
Well, it was something that I've never done before, and it was very unusual because the ex-queen was very wise and experienced in what she was doing, and it was all new to me. So it took me a little while just to get used to the status. And I have to say special thanks to my uncle Mordecai, and he was very supportive and just being a real friend, and you know what I mean. But I couldn't tell back then that he was my uncle, and but I can now.
When my niece became queen, I was very fortunate to be hired by the palace officials to be part of the palace staff, and so I was very nearby to Esther to keep an eye on her and make sure everything was okay. Well, one day I was going about my normal duties in the palace, and I was going down a specific corridor, and off in the shadows I heard some whispers, and I thought to myself, these are not just whispers, they are evil whispers, and they were snickering as well. And so I stopped and I thought to myself, "Self, you should listen, no?" And so I listened for quite a while, and I was appalled at what I heard. These two men were talking about assassinating the king. And so I thought to myself, "Self, you cannot let this go by." And so I went and told whoever needed to be told, and later that night when the assassins were going to assassinate the king, they had a surprise, no? And so that was the end of them.
This was only the first of the murder attempts made in this empire.
So what will your top priorities be as you enter your new position? Well, it's such a privilege to be in the service of the great magistrate Ahasuerus, and just to be a part of the Persian Empire. I think the things that we plan on accomplishing during our time here, a lot of building. We'll do a lot of building, things that are going to make the name of Ahasuerus be remembered forever. And as his prime minister, I plan to be as supportive as I can, and recognizing the critical aspects of running the kingdom, and of course, as everyone knows, the vile, disgusting problem of the Jews, and get rid of them Jews that are staying upon this empire.
Haman's golden opportunity was soon to arrive. When the annual State of the Empire dinner rolled around, the loud and depressing atmosphere provided the perfect conditions for Haman to strike.
The king has just authorized a legislation concerning the Jews who have been living in our great empire of Persia. For too long, these foreigners have been a thorn in our side. For too long, they have inhabited our land. We have discovered what we believe will be the final solution. We hereby authorize all concerned citizens of the empire to prepare to destroy the Jews on Adar the 14th. Those who assist in the annihilation of the infidels will be rewarded with the property of those they kill. Shalom.
Ove, I remember that day like yesterday. And there he was, on the television announcing all the Jews. He was going to kill them, exterminate them. I was just a young woman then. I was terrified for my life. I just knew that something had to be done. We needed a savior. Someone to come rescue us.
Well, when that fateful day came when Haman bin Arafat made his proclamation that the Jews would be exterminated on a certain day, I was appalled beyond measure. And so I thought to myself, what shall we do? And I thought maybe I should go to the king, no? But then I thought, that is probably not a good idea. And besides, my beautiful niece, Queen Esther, would do a much better job than at persuading the king than I would. And so I went to the palace and stood under her window in my mourning clothes.
It was probably late afternoon when I heard somebody calling my name. So I looked outside and I saw my uncle just being very, should I say, frustrated, and I could tell right away that something was going on, and but he didn't tell me right away what's happening. So I remember sending some servants just to find out what's going on, and they brought me the terrible news. That was something terrible, and you have to understand, because this is my people that we are talking about, and I felt so helpless because I couldn't even show up, in front of my husband. I just started praying and just asking the Lord to lead me, just to take the wise decision. So I felt like starting a fast, and I also sent them the message to my uncle that they would do the same. My people would support me. by fasting on the same matter.
A 3-day fast was held throughout the Jewish community.
And then 3 days later, I felt like this is the time for me to show up in front of my husband. So I put my best clothing and, just some French scents, and that I ordered just a couple of weeks ago. So I approached him, and after he asked me what brought me here, I was so nervous that just, going right away to the main points.
I remember thinking, she was a new wife to me. And at the time, we kings, we had the power to execute people who come in unannounced. But I had a thought of a meal coming to my mind, so I figured I'd let her speak in case she was to ask me to dinner for something.
I invited him and this sinful man, Haman, to the banquet. See, I didn't tell him right away what was my idea because I just wanted it to be put in the right way, not to rush the events, and just the right timing. So he agreed. He was very delighted, and he said, "Sure, we'll join, and then just tell us when and what time, and we'll be there."
She did. She threw us a feast. Matter of fact, I think it turned into 2 feasts. It was great. Excellent feasts. What a good cook. Glad I married her.
Haman called me from the palace, and he said that he had been invited to go to a dinner party with the Queen and the King, and it was a private something. I asked what it was for, and he said he didn't know, but they would probably be discussing something. When he came home that night after the banquet, I had some friends over, and he started going over his list of achievements. His advancement to Prime Minister, and just the various areas of power that he held. But then he got this long look on his face, and I asked him what was the matter, and he said that all his achievements meant nothing to him, because there was one official in the palace who did not hold him in high esteem. And I was like, well, what's the big deal? It's just one official. He was very disturbed over this. The brazen attitude that this other man had just really angered him. And I could see it. I could see how disturbed he was. I could see as he kept thinking about it. It kept eating away at him. And it eventually got to the point where he told me that he started fantasizing about assassinating this man.
Zeresh, along with all of Haman's friends, put forth a suggestion that he should build a 75-foot-high gallows. Its purpose? To hang Mordecai. That night, the king could not sleep.
Actually didn't sleep well. He woke up a couple of times during the night, just tossing in, and I didn't know what the matter was. I thought maybe he just catching flu, but
I think the reason I was tossing and turning so much is because there was some habanero sauce on some of the food she had prepared. But in the heated sweats and the thought processes I was going through, I just had to get some information for some reason, and I needed to read over the logs of what had transpired in the past. I guess burning with hot pepper sauce gets me thinking about the past. And then I remembered I wanted to do something special because my life was just spared by the young man Mordecai, and I wanted to do something special and grand for him. And I remember calling in Haman and to ask him get his opinion and his advice on what he would do to honor someone in such a grand state.
Haman told me later that he was thinking, honor? Well, it must be me. I mean, who else would the king want to honor? I've been working so hard. He always had this secret fantasy ever since we were, first married, that he always would share with me that one day he wanted to ride in the king's limousine in a royal procession down the middle of the street and have people yelling out that this is the king's man, this is the king, this is the man that the king wants to honor. And so I knew that was his secret fantasy, and that was the reward that Haman suggested that the king give to the man who honored him, since he was sure that he was the man that the king would want to honor.
I was never so surprised the day that the prime minister, the wicked prime minister Haman, came and, being humbled in a chauffeur's hat, he came and escorted me to the king's limousine. And he opened the door and said, "Get in, we are going for a procession. And because the king wants to honor you." "Wants to honor me?" I said. "For what?" And he said, "Well, because of when you saved him a while back." For the briefest of moments, I felt sorry for this man who was the prime minister, the second in command next to the king, who was my chauffeur. But it was only the briefest moment, mind you. And I got into the car, the limousine, and we drove off, and the side of the street was just lined with people cheering and shouting. It's my chauffeur. He was saying, "This is the way the king honors those who he delights in." And I was very honored that day. That was one of the biggest surprises of my life.
Haman came home that night in tears because of all that he had to do to Mordecai, and it was just the utter humiliation. He was so distraught, and I could just sense something. My intuition told me, Haman, you have to stay away from this guy and this Mordecai, because there's some kind of power thing behind him that's protecting him. Because everything that Haman had tried to do to ruin this man, everything had failed miserably. And I told Haman, I said, just leave this man alone, because he's bad news. For some reason, he's being protected. You just have to leave him alone. And but before I could finish, one of Haman's aides came in and was taking him to escort him to the banquet that he had. He had another banquet this night with the queen. And he was walking out the door, and I just shouted out to him, "Haman, please, stay away from Mordecai." But he didn't listen to me, as usual, didn't acknowledge me. And that was the last time I ever saw him.
As soon as they entered the room, they were like, so impressed by the table and by the dishes, by the variety. And my husband asked again, what is that I wanted? And I didn't tell him right away. Just I asked him if he would like to try some of the dishes. And I told him that I will sure tell him what's the matter is, but at the next banquet. And it was at the second banquet when the truth revealed, the truth about Haman, because my husband was still very anxious to find out, what's bothering me, and so he brought up the question again. And so I felt that that would be the right time just to tell him what wicked people is he surrounded by. Of course, I had to tell that about my origin and my relation to Mordecai. As soon as he found out that Mordecai is my uncle, and that we both Jews, he got so upset and just even furious, with Haman for what he has done.
Well, I was upset. I mean, here a guy was going to wipe out the race, the one who brought me my wife who cooks so good. And I just couldn't seem to go through that issue without having another good meal like that. So I had to do something about that. That was a bad plan on his behalf. Then I remember I came in from the garden because I went out the news was so upsetting I had to go out and get some air and think about it through clearly. And then as I came in, Haman was attacking my wife. I said, "Whoa, what's going on here? You can't be doing this here." And I remember just at the time we were in the midst of that conflict. Another person had come in to let me know that, you know, the gallows that that Haman were finished for Mordecai. So I said, you know what? I told Haman. I said, Haman, those gallows look like they would fit you perfectly. So I had him arrested and condemned to death, to hang on his own gallows.
I have a brief statement. I am pleased to announce that after much deliberation, we have reached a decision concerning the underhanded legislation of the late Prime Minister. We hereby grant Jews the authority to defend themselves on Adar the 14th against any attacker, foreign or domestic. I will take questions now.
Jews began to assemble, preparing to defend themselves. On Adar 14, the Jews overpowered their enemies. The date that was supposed to spell out death and destruction for the Jews became the day of their greatest victory.
Well, as this whole drama transpired before our very eyes, I kept thinking that there is another force at work, that the hand of the Almighty, blessed be He, that His hand has been in each and every aspect of this whole tragedy and then victory for the Jews. And His hand was just working all along the way, and as we look back, we can see it in the smallest things to the biggest things. And we truly praise Him for the salvation that He has brought to our nation. And perhaps in the future there will be another Haman ben Arafat that will hate the Jews and want to destroy them. And I trust that the Almighty will once again bring His people to salvation, and His hidden hand will be revealed, and we shall know that He is.
For a people continuously spared from annihilation, history declares that the hidden hand will again reveal itself on their behalf.
He didn't know what he was doing, obviously, and he didn't mean that. See, that's very it's very touching.
king,
It's not the king is. It was more like sluggish.
the king has
Yeah.
The king has just authorized a legislation concerning the Jews who live in our great empire of... Is this on?
Yep, start over again.
Okay.
My people would support me by fasting on the same matter. And God committed a miracle again. And that noise.
It does.
It's okay. And his official came and said, Vashti, the king wants you. And I said, what? The king wants me? No, they will say.
Has authorized the legislation. Has signed a legislation that allows to start the military campaign, allowing to eradicate. Well, see, my husband. Has signed the legislation.
I just knew this was perfect.
Is it recording?
Yes.
Oh!
I was still young back then, and I was just like confused, and well, that any other lady would feel the same. And I completely forgot what happened then.